Close your eyes. She heard the same deep voice. She couldn't even see with open eyes, but she compiled. Get away from her, the king said, and the lady instantly stood up, taking a step away from her. The king took another look at the wounds left on Vian's body and took his sword out. The next moment, he sliced the lady's head off her body, and the body fell limp on the floor. Jungkook knelt before Vian and held her cheeks. It's okay. It's me. I got you. His touch was so gentle she almost held onto his arms. The familiar touch that provided her peace and the sense of protection. She found her home again. Jungkook picked her up and walked outside. The servants could do nothing but to follow their king and wait till they received their answers to whatever was happening there. Jungkook simply took her to his room and got her treated from a physician. Vian thanked the physician and the lady left. Vian looked around the majestic room. The dark walls and the luxurious furniture, the gold-plated architecture screamed royalty. She wondered if her touch would dirty the place. She stayed there on the soft bed that was beyond anything she has ever rested on. The door of the room opened again, and this time the owner of the room entered. The man whom she loved, the man who was already on a higher level than her, belonging to the kingdom. But what was she supposed to do with the information that he was the king who owned them all? He looked so stunning in his majestic robe that was designed with gold embroidery. She could only stare at him in awe. Jungkook, are you feeling better? Maya nodded and Jungkook took a seat in front of her on the bed. He held her hand in his and kissed it. Jungkook, I'm sorry you had to go through this. Wine, I have so many questions. Where am I supposed to start? Why didn't you come to see me? I waited for you a lot. How are you the king? And I never knew. How did you meet me? If you were the king, why did we have to meet secretly and fear the guards? Jungkook only stared at her in return with softness in his eyes. He could understand her curiosity. Jungkook, I'm sorry for not coming to meet you. I had to leave the kingdom in emergency. I would tell you on Wednesday, but I had no idea you would come today. Wine, I was going insane thinking I would never see you again. Her eyes teared up. It only killed Jungkook by the thought how careless he was putting her in such state. Jungkook, I told my guards not to hurt the lady coming near the walls on Wednesday and Thursdays. The security is so high, Ryan. There's no way they didn't see you before. Ryan, but why you? Jungkook, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He moved forward and took her in his embrace. I will explain everything, but I want you to eat something first. Ryan, you are the king. Jungkook, that doesn't change us. That doesn't change my love for you. Jungkook held her chin and wiped her tears. You wanted to meet me where we wouldn't fear or death. You're here now, in my room, on my bed. Vine cupped his cheeks and kissed him. Jungkook returned the kiss, pulling her close to him. It didn't take a minute as their heads clouded up with lust. It had been months they waited for this moment. Every other problem could wait. Jungkook leaned forward, still kissing her, hand sliding under her dress as he hovered above her. Her heartbeat rose up and she tightly held his shirt. Mine, you look so different there, so powerful and majestic. She said. The two laid in the bed cuddled against each other after their heated session. Mine, you still didn't give me my answers. Jungkook, the whole kingdom is against the people left outside. I need you to find a way to make them accept you all. I can't bring you here unprepared. People will give you a hell time. Ryan, right. We are the traitors after all. Jungkook, your ancestors were the wrong ones. Ryan, I thought I would never see you again. I thought you would think I ran away and betrayed you too. Jungkook, I believe in you, Ryan. No matter what comes our way, I will always believe in you. Jungkook made sure she ate and slept well for the day. When the next day arrived, the whole palace was in chaos, knowing the king brought an outsider not only in the kingdom, but in his room. No one did say a word in front of him, but the gossips were everywhere. Jungkook stood on his throne, the mighty robe spread across his shoulders, and the crown laying on his head made up of jewels worth a fortune. Wine stood in the crowd. Wine stood in the crowd, fingers fiddling. She had never been so nervous in her entire life. He once eyed everyone's present in the huge hall, and his hand slipped to join behind his back. Jungkook, everyone has questions for the outsider brought inside the palace, so I must, as your king, release you of your curiosity. Jungkook extended his hand out towards Ryan, and she knew it was for her. Her hands were sweaty at this point, but the trust in him took her up the stage. She wore a beautiful gown that reached down her ankles. Her wavy hair fell over her shoulders. She looked like an example of glorification, so beautiful and majestic as she stood beside Jungkook, her panic calming a little when her hand came in contact with his. Jungkook, I am your king, and I announce her, Park Mayan, soon to be your queen. He raised a ring in his hand before slipping it across Mayan's ring finger. His face was dark, but the flash of warmth in his eyes towards her was enough to bless her with the happiness of getting engaged with the one she loved. Jungkook had already made up with her in her room, let her know about his move, and kissed her till she was satisfied of having her ceremony without her family. The man who stood there, flaming eyes and mighty aura, was nothing like the sweetheart inside the room, who held her with such love that spring would bloom by his handsome smile. Jungkook, your queen and her people from outside will be brought in. Any objection or insult towards them will be insult towards your king. Fortunate of your people to not be born as the kids of traitors, but the outsider will come clean, prove their loyalty before getting accepted in the kingdom. No one dared say a word. They had their hands behind their back and kept their gazes low most of the times. They knew their king so well. He was a man of words, a king who had made sure he and his kingdom were on the same page instead of throwing commands against their will. But he was ruthless. He wouldn't tolerate an action against the imposed law and a word against his people. Jungkook, as for my betrothed, her actions are my actions. I assure you of her loyalty, so you must respect her as for she is going to be your queen. I command the royal servants to start the preparations of the festival soon, for your king is going to hold an official marriage. That was when the gasp left the crowd, and if not the almost inaudible sounds, the gasp that left Ryan's throat was the loudest. Her eyes wide and hold tight against his hand. It only made Jungkook smile as he shifted his eyes towards her. Jungkook, let me propose you properly, my lady. Jungkook turned towards her and slowly knelt down, hands still holding hers, the gasp turning into loud murmurs. Jungkook, will you marry me, Ryan? It was a sight the people had never witnessed before. Seeing their king on knees before a lady, some smiled, some had their eyes wide open, and some looked with agony for losing the chance even when they had none. Ryan nodded instantly, her eyes glossy and feelings out of the world. She couldn't care less about the people All she knew was the man she loved so dearly was proposing her to marry him. Once Jungkook stood up, he kissed her forehead and Wine rested her head against his chest. Wine, I love you so much. Jungkook, I love you too, my queen.